Maro. Maro.
Keye.
Maro.
Oe.
Maro.
Hey.
Maro. Maro.
Oye.
Livé. Maro. Maro. Maro.
Kefé.
Maro.
Keye. Kefé.
Maro.
Keye.
Livé. Livé.
Astisso. Ushkon. Hey. Astisso. Ushkon. Oe.
Maro.
Hey.
Chasseur.
Kefé.
Sèche.
Ushkon.
Oil. Sèche.
Ushkon. Ushkon.
Prêt. Oil. Pastisseur. Bûcheron. Oé. Kay. Liberax. Oil. Libère. Bûcheron. Prêt. Fait. Bûcheron. Kay. Bûcheron. Bûcheron.
Keye. Oe.
Oil. Sèche. Livé.
Oé. Libert. Maro.
Kefé.
Pescio.
Astisso.
Pescio.
Hey.
Maro.
Chasseo. Oe. Keye.
Oil. Livé. Sèche. Maro. Maro. Oil.
Chasseo. Hey.
Libère. Chasseur.
Kefé. Chasseo. Oe.
Sèche.
Chasseo. Keye.
Libéral.
Chasseo.
Kay. Pastisseur. Pastisseur. Bûcheron. Prêt. Oil. Férax. Oil. Serre. Libet. Férax. Serre. Férax. Féfé.
Oil. Livé.
Chasseo. Hey. Keye. Hey.
Sèche.
Astisso. Bûcheron. Oe.
Oé. Kay. Chasseur. Libet. Chasseur. Prêt.
Chasseo.
Kéfé.
Keye. Chasseo. Oe. Hey. Que fait?
Ohé.
Oyel, Verax.
Assisto.
Barreau,
Effet.
Assisto.
barreau.
Prêt.
Virax. Oil.
Cueillir.
Libère. Oil. Bûcheron. Bûcheron.
Effet. Assisto. Poet. Assisto. Minéo. Cueillir.
Sec, vivé.
Bûcheron. Prêt.
Ohé.
Oyel, vivé.
Assisto. Bûcheron.
Prêt. Pastisseur. Bûcheron.
Effet.
Sec, Verax.
Pescio.
Kay. Pastisseur. Prêt. Pastisseur. Bûcheron. Ohé. Pastisseur. Bûcheron.
Poet. Minéo. Bûcheron. Minéo. Effet.
Sec, vivé. Oyel, Verax. Verax. Oyel,
Assisto. Cueillir.
Verax.
Assisto. Bûcheron. Prêt.
Oyel, vivé.
Bûcheron. Cueillir.
Sec, vivé.
Assisto.
Verax.
Kay.
Sec, Oyel. sec.
Assisto. Effet. Minéo. Assisto. Was ist so? Was ist so? Was ist so? Mineo, was ist so? Was ist so? Mineo, Oil, was ist so?
Okay. Pastisso. Boé. Bûcheron. Libé. Pastisso. Bûcheron.
Gehe, hey, gehe,
Sec,
Oil,
Virax.
was ist so? Oil,
Liberax.
Mineo, was ist so? Hey,
Sec, Oil, Sec, Oil.
was ist so? Bûcheron,
Café. Pirax. Vilain. Pastissort. Pastissort. Okay.
hey, was ist so? Was ist so?
Café.
Mineo. Was ist so? 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 Bûcheron,
Oil, bûcheron. Libet. Oé. Prêt. Serre. Libet. Oil. Pastissor. Néant. Oé.
Oil, Serac, sèche.
Kate.
Oil,
Bastisso.
Café.
Bastisso. Bastisso.
Prêt.
Bastisso.
barreau,
Café.
Bastisso.
barreau,
Bastisso.
barreau,
Kate. Ohé, maro. Prêt, maro, maro.
Prêt. Astisso. Bûcheron.
Kay. Ohé.
Maro.
Ohé.
Maro.
Keye.
Chasseo. Verax. Oil. Verax.
Kéfé. Chasseur.
Oil.
Verax.
Oil.
Verax.
Chasseo.
Maro.
Que fait?
Maro.
Prêt.
Maro.
Prêt. Chasseo. Ohé. Oil. Astisso. Chasseo.
Kay. Castisso. Maro.
Que fait?
Maro.
Keye.
Maro.
Ohé. Astisso.
Maro.
Prêt. Verax. Libé. Chasseur. Oil. Chasseur. Ohé. Liber. Chasseur. Oil. Libert. Oil. Chasseur.
Que fait?
Chasseur. Oil. Liberax. Oil. Certes. Libé. Verax. Oil. Verax. Libé. Oil. Oil. Libé. Libé. Verax. Chasseur.
Prêt. Astisso.
Prêt.
Keye.
Verax.
Astisso. Que fait?
Oil. Maro.
Prêt.
Oil. Castisso. Bûcheron.
Keye. Ohé. Que fait? Bûcheron. Keye. Bûcheron.
Kay. Ohé. Libé. Bûcheron.
Ohé.
Oil. Verax.
Bûcheron. Prêt. Que fait? Astisso.
Bûcheron. Kay. Bûcheron. Féfé. Bûcheron. Bûcheron. Ohé. Rastissor. Rastissor. Féfé. Prêt. Rastissor.
Prêt.
Rastisso. Ohé.
Voyez l'axe.
Rastisso. Rastisso. Kayé.
Voyez le chef. Voyez le
Bûcheron. Rastisso. Rastisso. Bûcheron. Prêt. Rastisso. Bûcheron. Ohé.
Voyez le
Rastisso.
Ohé. Certes. Kay. Libère. Bûcheron. Bûcheron.
Kayé. Bûcheron.
Féfé.
Rastisso.
Ohé.
Voyez l'axe.
Rastisso. Rastisso.
Prêt.
Voyez le
Bûcheron.
chef.
Bûcheron.
Kay.
Voyez l'axe.
Rastisso. 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 Kayé.
Voyez le
Rastisso.
Verax. Rastisor. Kay.
Sef, Vilina.
Rastisso.
Ohé.
Que fais?
Vilain. Vilain. Pastisor. Prêt. Vilain. Fait. Kate.
Verax. Verax.
Bastisso.
Prêt.
Prêt.
Oil.
Léo.
Livé.
Bastisso.
Kate.
Ohé.
Verax. Pastisor. Pastisor.
Prêt.
Oil. Pastisor.
Que fais?
Fait.
Oil. Verax. C'est livé.
Léo.
Vilain. C'est livé.
Bastisso.
Ohé. Kate. Libert. Verax. Pastisor. Ohé.
Verax. Verax. Livé.
Bastisso. Cueillet.
Cerf, Férax,
Oil.
Cerf, Libet, Pastisor, Pastisor, Minéo.
Oil.
Oil, Férax, Bûcheron, Libet,
Oil.
Cerf,
Férax.
Libet,
Cueillet.
Cerf,
Oil.
Férax,
Oil.
Cerf, Férax, Libet, Pastisor, 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 Minéo.
Prêt.
Férax, Pastisor, Pastisor, Minéo.
Que fait?
Oil. Libé.
Pastisor. Oil. Pastisor.
Vera. Libé.
Oye. Cerf. Keva. Vera. Libé. Oye. Libé.
Cueillet.
Pastisor, Pastisor, Bûcheron.
Prêt. Cerf. Oye.
Libé, bûcheron. Oil. Cerf, oil. Verax. Libé. Pastissor, pastissor.
Oe.
Sec.
Verax.
Livé.
Verax.
Sec. Livé.
Pastisso. Que fait?
Pastissor, pastissor.
Fait.
Oil. Verax. Libé. Pastissor.
Que fait?
Certes. Pastissor. Pastissor. Kay. Pastissor. Pastissor. Minéo. Prêt. Libé. Oil. Verax. Oil. Certes. Pastissor. Bûcheron. Effet. Pastissor. 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 Pastissor.
Oe. Qui est? Fait.
Libé. Verax. Certes. Verax. Oil. Certes. Oé.
Verax. Verax.
Oye. Sec. Livé. Verax.
Prêt.
Oil.
Sec.
Effet. Oé.
Oil. Verax.
Livé.
Sec.
Livé.
Verax.
Oil.
Bûcheron. Pastisso. Bûcheron. Que fait?
OK. Prêt.
He has some idle, he has some idle time. I think I just continue going like fourth stable. I'm patrolling only half my army, but I'm patrolling a hill. This is way better for me. I'm patrolling only half my army, but I'm patrolling a hill. This is way better for me. Nah, this is better for him. Nah. I want to take the fight in a non-stack patrol way. This is good. I'm getting a lot of idle time out of him. Five stables? Why not? It's in a wall. I need to mark it then, maybe. Market, sell stone, go up. Hey, here, I found you through Grubby, now spamming videos and learning AoE2. Your content is awesome. Oh, that's amazing, bro. That warms my heart to hear. Shout out Grubby, bro. I really appreciate you coming over. Grubby's an absolute legend for picking up this game and honestly getting some really good progress. And he's walling a lot for stat. He's counterattacking me. All I have to do is defend. I have 5 freaking stables. Should be completely fine. Shout out Grubby, bro, and welcome. Mr. Sir Dad a lot. Love it. Welcome, my friend. I have to take this fight. It's not a very good fight, but I have to take it so he doesn't kill my villagers. And then hopefully my reinforcements can help carry. And this might be decent. Yeah, I think it'll be decent in the end. I have so much production that should be completely fine. And now he's stuck defending my scouts for free or forever. And I have like a good defense on him. Let's cancel my scouts. I want to go up to Castle Age now. I have infinite resources. Look at how much food I'm getting per minute. Khmer farms are absolutely ridiculous. Now you understand why it's an S tier civ. I mean, S plus I put it in, I think. Did I put it S plus? No, I put it in S tier. So good. The only reason it's not S plus is it has some awkward matchups. But what it does, it's such a good civ, the Khmer. I actually feel like the civ needs a nerf, by the way. But I'm never going to suggest that because I like it. Why would I suggest that, you know? I'm not going to work against myself. It's one of my civs. Okay. I put it low S plus. Oh, did I really? Oh, spot number 4. Oh, so it's still $5. Oh, I'm tripping. I thought it was 10. Oh yeah, low S plus. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, it deserves it. And the only reason it's not higher is that it just has like a couple bad matchups. 80 feudal age. I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at the food that I have. It's freaking like it's OP. Like, how is this not OP? What other civ besides like maybe Poles that have all kinds? Game where you have like, let's say 15, 20 All right, I spent a lot of time on the last one, but moving on to number 3 now, it's going to be a bit more of a quick tip. This one is going to be for melee units, and it's basically the idea of using stand ground to focus a single unit. And where this is helpful is when you have a few scouts and you really want to single out an enemy spear, and you want to kill the spear fast because it does a lot of damage to your scouts. You don't want the spear to get many hits, and then after the spear is down, you can start chasing down a few archers or whatnot. So it's a very, very common situation that comes up very often if you're playing as scouts. And the reason why we use stand ground for this is just simply how melee pathing works and how melee fights work. Basically, if I'm on aggressive stance with my scouts and I've got 4 of them, and I'm engaging a spearman and let's say 4 archers, if I right click the spear with my aggressive scouts, they're going to try to go attack it. But as soon as one of them starts bumping on the other scouts and can't quite get into the spear, he just goes ahead and targets the archer, and he just completely forgets about the spear. This is really bad because sometimes, because of like the nature of pathing in this game, it's just how it is. Sometimes you run in, only 2 scouts get locked onto the spear, and then the other 2 start hitting archers, and then the spear just wins the fight versus 2 scouts and then starts hitting your other scouts. And so what should have been a winning fight ends up being a disaster fight simply because you didn't use stand ground. Well, how it works with stand ground is that you right click the spear and your scouts will not target other units. They're not going to seek them out. They're only going to focus that spear down unless the other units are within 1 tile from that scout, and then they might deviate. But generally speaking, with stand ground, your units will listen to you a lot more when it comes to singling out one units at a time. Also, just for a bonus tip at number 3, it also helps to use box formation for your scouts or for your melee units in general when you have them in low numbers. So 3, 4, 5 units, definitely use box formation. It keeps them tighter together and it makes it a lot easier to maneuver with them. All right, moving on to number 2 now. This is a very interesting tip and one that isn't used as often as it should be used. However, it's been popularized a lot by someone like Leary who likes to do it, and a lot of top players look to try and do this as well when they can. It's basically called making some runner units. That's what I'm going to call it. And it's used for late game trades, whether it's range versus range or melee range versus melee range, whatever the case may be, just big late game battles in general. The way it works is if you have your range army in, a certain line attacking the enemy units, and your enemy also has range units firing back at you, what you want to do is grab a few units. It could be anything, cavalry, melee, range, any units, put them on no attack stance and patrol them in front of your range units by just 1 tile. So 1 tile in front of your range units, and patrol them on 1 tile, really small, back and forth, and don't do anything else. Just move back and forth and soak arrow fire. How does this work? Why is this a good thing? Why do we want to soak enemy arrow fire? Well, the first thing, and we've already established this, since these units are going to be 1 tile in front of your range units, they will soak arrow fire from the opponent who's patrolling in, because as we've already said in this video, patrol will target the closest enemy unit and shoot that unit until that unit dies, and then move on to the next one. And so by having these units 1 tile further or 1 tile closer, we soak all the arrow fire, and this is where the patrol comes in. But patrolling back and forth on a small area, like 1 tile back and forth, we actually trick the game, and we trick especially ballistics. That's what we're tricking basically, because this is really confusing, but I'll try my best to explain it. You're changing our trajectory so often in a short period of time that as the arrows are being launched from the enemy, a lot of them will miss and will shoot in the direction where our unit should have been traveling when the arrow was released. But since we're patrolling back and forth, our trajectory will change, and so the arrow will completely miss. And this will happen on a large scale. A lot of the enemy arrows will just simply miss because our trajectory is, like I said, constantly changing. And the result of this is simply fascinating. You're going to soak up hundreds of arrows for just a few units that would otherwise die to like 20 or 30 arrows. And it just gives you so much extra HP or extra tankiness to your army, since a lot of your enemy DPS is landing completely void. It's a really tough concept to explain, but hopefully with the visuals you would have grasped the concept and you're going to be able to implement it in your own games. And just to recap this tip, because it's super important, it's really easy to do this trick. Just patrol in with your army, then grab 2 or 3 units. It could be a hussar, it could be any kind of unit that you don't care about, and just put them on no attack stance, patrol them in front of your range units, and let it go crazy. The results will be fascinating.
Ok, fait. Pastisor. 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 Ok. Libère. Oil. Pastisor. Oé. Libérax. Pastisor. Libère.
Prêt, Verax. Voyelle.
Libé.
Crier. Pastisor.
Prêt. Vera. Live. Ser. Vera. Live. Ser. Vera. Live. Vera.
Bem, assisto. Assisto. Quem é?
Keva. Ser. Live. Oye. Oe. Keye. Oye. Live. Ser. Live.
Que fez? Quem é?
Ser. Live.
Assisto. Bem. Oi. Assisto. Bem, assisto. 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 Assisto.
Keva. Vera. Oye. Live. Oye. Vera. Live. Vera. Oye.
Prêt. Oil. Liber. Bûche. Oil. Liber. Oil. Pastisso. Rax. Pastisso.
Prêt. Vera. Oye. Live. Ser. Oe. Vera. Live. Oye. Oye. Keye. Keva. Ser. Vera. Prêt. Live. Keva. Oye. Prêt. Keye. Oe. Vera.
Alla battaglia. Live. Azon.
Prêt. Ser. Vera. Oe. Keye. Kevøye. Prêt. Keye. Oe. Live. Cert. Keva. Live. Cert. Oe. Prêt.
Prêt.
Keye. Kevøye. Live.
Oye. Live. Ser.
Prêt.
Que fait? Oye. Ser. Live.
Oe. Oye. Vera. Ser. Live. Oye. Cert. Vera. Cert. Live. Vera.
yeah, oh yeah, certes. Oh yeah,
Che veuille. Live. Oh yeah. Live.
prêt, certes, live.
Oe. Certes.
Certes, oh yeah, live. Oh yeah,
Che ye.
que fait? Que y a, certes, live.
C'est fait.
The Hussar. If we apply these tricks to every fight we take, the chances that we'll have success in that particular game go up because we're implementing them multiple times a game and not just once or twice here and there. Before I get started though, I will just mention that I made a video recently on how to dodge ballistics, so I will be mentioning that a lot in this video but not actually covering how to do it. If you guys don't know anything about that, definitely look for that video on my channel. I might even link it in the description below. So without further ado, let's hop in and take a look at the list. Alright, starting off at number 5, I've got a very nice tip for you in late game, and this is actually very applicable in pretty much every single late game that you have a big powerhouse late game gold unit, whether it's Arbalest, Heavy Cav Archer, Mangadai, whatever it may be. Basically, when you want to take engagements against other armies, the way you want to go about it is spread your units to reduce overkill. I first have to cover what overkill is real quick. Basically, overkill is the idea that if you have 40 range units shooting at 1 unit from the enemy, let's say at 1 militia, only the first like 8 arrows will matter to kill the militia, and the next 32 that are shots will just land on the ground because the unit's already dead. However, you already shot that shot, those arrows are doing nothing now, and you're not getting any damage. However, if you want to spread your damage and not have this overkill happening on every shot you take, the way to go about it is to patrol in with your army in the staggered formation. This way, when they get in range, and you want to also patrol a little bit further away, when you get in range, your units will create this kind of concave where you're very much spread out at max range and shooting at enemy units, and this way, you're actually going to be spreading your damage across multiple units and reducing the overkill significantly. It actually means that if your opponent patrols in line formation and he stacks up and you do this concave kind of trick, you will win that fight if it's equal resources pretty much 10 out of 10 times because you're reducing overkill. It's that impactful. You might be wondering as well, why does overkill happen when you patrol in line formation? Like, what's the difference? The whole point is when you patrol in line formation, how patrol works is that each unit will target the closest enemy unit. So if all your units are stacked in the same 2-3 tiles, you're going to be targeting the same few units that are closest to those 2-3 tiles. So even if you have 10 units on one tile, all those units will be shooting the same enemy target that's closest to them, and that is what causes overkill. However, if you spread out the units using this concave tactic, you're going to easily realize that your damage is being very nicely spread, and you're going to get amazing trades, whereas your opponent will be landing all kinds of overkill and wasting potential DPS. Alright, hopping into number 4 now. This is going to be a bit more of a practical tip for the mid game and the early game, and this is going to be more so before ballistics is researched. So before ballistics is researched in a simplified game where you have like, let's say 15, 20 crossbows or archers or skirms, whatever it may be, fighting against another group of 15, 20 range units, the idea to maximize the efficiency of your trades is twofold. There's two things to keep in mind before and after you take your shot. So the first thing you have to realize before you take your shot is you want to get in a position where you are as close as possible to the enemy army, and you also want to target the closest enemy unit to your army. This way, it makes it incredibly hard for your opponent to dodge and create enough distance and enough of an angle to where your shot will not actually land. If you just target a random enemy in the middle of their army that's going to be like a little bit further away from your army, your opponent will have a lot of time to move out of the way and actually dodge the shots. Even if your shot will land near the army, it's not going to hit anything because it didn't hit its intended target. And if you're too far away, chances are you're not going to land shots because it's very easy for your opponent to get out of the way in time. This is why we want to move in towards the enemy army, take that shot, and then right after you take the shot, this is the second step, you have to move out of the way now, probably away to dodge the enemy shot. So you want to move to the left or to the right to dodge the enemy shot that we know is going to be coming at us because he's also trying to fight us. If you're winning the fight and you're kind of trying to close the distance, you basically want to do the same first step. So moving close, take the shot, get the closest enemy unit, but then instead of walking away, we walk towards him. The reason for this is if he turns around to shoot, we'll tank one shot, no problem, we'll take it, we'll eat it, and we'll get closer and closer to where we're able to take shots from closer, which are impossible to dodge, whittling away his army. So we put our opponent in a position where if they don't take a shot, we're killing units for free, 1 or 2, and he'll run away. And if he does take a shot, we can close the gap, we'll lose a few units ourselves, but we'll continue to take away units from the enemy. And that is the best way to push your advantage in range versus range fights when you're winning. And if you're not winning, like I said, you just shoot at the closest enemy unit and then you dodge to the right or to the left or even away from his army to dodge his retaliation. It takes a lot of practice to do this, but the idea of targeting the closest enemy unit and then dodging right to left is a very, very natural thing that once you get a little bit better at it and once you start practicing it, it's going to start clicking and it's going to become second nature to you in these kind of range versus range fights, which are very common, by the way. Alright, I spent a lot of time with the last one, but moving on to number 3 now, it's going to be a bit more of a quick tip. This one is going to be for melee units, and it's basically the idea of using stand ground to focus a single unit. Where this is helpful is when you have a few scouts and you really want to single
Kevo, Vera. Vera. Prêt, certes. Oye. Kevo, Lieve, Vera. Lieve. Prêt, certes. Oye, Lieve, oye. Vera, certes. Certes, Vera, Lieve, Vera. Keje, Lieve, Vera, Lieve. Prêt. Vera. Certes. Vera. Oye, Lieve. Kevo, certes. Oye, Lieve. Certes, Vera. Oye, certes, Vera. Oye, Lieve, Vera. Oye. Kevo, certes, Lieve, Vera. Certes. Oye. Certes. Live. Vera. Live. Oe. Certes. Keye. Keva. Vera. 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 Keye. Live. Oe. Prêt. Keye. Veuille. Certes. Prêt. Vera. Oye.
Oe. Pastisso. Keye. Certes.
Prêt. Oyel. Live. Certes. Oyel. Live. certes,
Kay, Liberax. Pastisor. Féfé. Oé. Oil. Certes.
Pastiso, 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 pastiso. Keye, oe,
Oil. Libé.
Fefe,
Serak. Oil. Sek.
pastiso, 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 pastiso. Oe, pastiso, pastiso.
cueilleur,
Kay. Liberax. Certes. Pastisor. Prêt. Pastisor.
Prêt.
Out an enemy spear, and you want to kill the spear fast because it does a lot of damage to your scouts. You don't want the spear to get many hits, and then after the spear is down, you can start chasing down a few archers or whatnot. So it's a very, very common situation that comes up very often if you're playing as scouts. And the reason why we use stand ground for this is just simply how melee pathing works and how melee fights work. Basically, if I'm on aggressive stance with my scouts and I've got 4 of them, and I'm engaging a spearman and let's say 4 archers, if I right click the spear with my aggressive scout, a trajectory so often in a short period of time, not going to be able to use them properly. So the big thing that I want to emphasize is that you need to look at your minimap while you're macroing at home, while you're doing your economy. Keep an eye on that thing to know as soon as you see. Alright, before I show you guys number 1, as I always like to do in these top 5 videos, I've got a honorable mention. For this one, it's going to be a very simple tip. Basically, you want to look at your minimap to know when you will need to fight. All these army control tips are really cool, but if you're not looking at the actual fight, you're not going to be able to use them properly. So the big thing that I want to emphasize is that you need to look at your minimap while you're macroing at home, while you're doing your economy. Keep an eye on that thing to know as soon as you see enemy units on that minimap or appear, you want to go ahead and look and then try to control your army to be able to implement these tips in the first place. So it can be tricky to control both army and economy at the same time, but part of being a good player is knowing how to balance those things, and using the minimap is a great way to help do so. Another honorable mention, come check me out on Twitch because you're going to learn a lot of new things by watching me play tons of games pretty much daily on there. So definitely check me out on Twitch, link in description. Moving on now to number 1, we've got my favorite tip here that a lot of people do know, but I think enough people don't that it's worth mentioning. And this is stand ground into aggressive patrol for melee units. I'm going to also add a bonus tip and show you guys how to engage range units when you have melee units. This is just going to be how to take engagements with melee units. So when it's melee versus melee, how you want to do it is run in with your cavalry or your infantry or whatnot with stand ground. You stand ground and you patrol into the enemy. As soon as you get within range where your first few units are starting to clash with the enemy, you change that patrol into aggressive. And this is the most insane way to take engagements with melee units. How it works is your units will clump together because of stand ground, and you're going to get really close to the enemy before switching to aggressive and then letting the back line find its target. This makes it that the first few will stack really tightly and be able to kill a couple targets of the enemy because we're not going to break formation too early on. The difference between this is that if you're on aggressive patrol and you're just patrolling from far, as soon as your melee units get within range of the enemy melee units, they start to break formation, they start to bump on each other, and they start running in pretty much like one at a time in complete chaos. If you keep them in stand ground, like I said, they keep the formation a lot more tight, and you're going to be easily able to like one-shot a couple enemy units right away. And if it's an evenly matched fight, if you kill a couple units from your enemy before he's able to kill a couple of yours, it tends to snowball in a melee engagement. I don't want to say that this tip will always win you engagements that are evenly matched, because at the end of the day, patrol is pretty random when it comes to melee versus melee because of weird pathing things. So sometimes you will lose, but this is the best way to ensure consistency in your fight. Stand ground, patrol in, and then switch to aggressive stance, and this gives you the best results consistently across the board. Okay, and now for the second kind of bonus tip for this number 1, it's basically how to patrol into range units when you're playing as a melee unit. So if you've got like a cavalry unit or an infantry and you're running into an arbalest mass or any kind of range units, let's be honest, it's tough to engage them sometimes because they're not going to run at us. They're a range unit. They're going to control the game. They're going to wait in a certain area that benefits them. We need to take the fight to them most of the time, but it's tricky because if you just run at them, they've got 8 tiles, 8 range usually, that they're going to be shooting at us that we can't even hit them because we're not in range yet because we're a melee unit. So the way to close those 8 tiles without taking the most amount of losses or with reducing the amount of losses we take is by spamming the split and line formation as we run in. How this works is, once again, we're going to trick ballistics, which is, by the way, the most dumb technology, getting tricked left and right. But we're going to trick ballistics by once again changing our trajectory very quickly and very often. The way this works is you're just going to run at the enemy range units, spam split and line formation, so you're closing the gap since you're running at them, but you're also changing your trajectory constantly so you dodge a lot of the incoming arrow fire. As soon as you get up close, you can just go ahead and patrol into them and take the fight as you normally would, but this time we took less damage as we ran at them instead of just losing 3, 4, 5 units before the fight even starts. Alright, that's gonna do it for this top 5 video. I usually do it a lot more lighthearted than this and cover some very basic stuff, but in this video I really went into the nitty-gritty because I want to give you guys the best tips and the best tricks that I know and not kind of hide anything and prevent you guys from having all the knowledge. So I'm really trying to help you guys as best as I can, and I really hope that it benefits you and that it's easy to digest, or as easy as possible to digest. Let me know if you've had any questions about this video, and if there's any tip that you didn't quite understand. I'll try my best to read the comments and answer, and help each other out in the comments. By the way, if you guys understood a certain tip better than someone else, help them out, answer their questions, and let's create this environment where we're all trying to help each other improve, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about with Age of Empires 2. We're all trying to have fun and play the game at the highest level that we possibly can. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to make a proper unit transition in Age of Empires 2. Now, a lot of people have the wrong idea when thinking about unit transitions, and there are a lot of very common mistakes that tend to occur when people try to go for such a thing. Unit transitions are like making a U-turn when driving. Sometimes you really have to make one, but you have to find the right time to do so, because there are a lot of signs that say no U-turn, and even when there's a sign that says no U-turn, you can still do it as long as you don't get caught by the cops or cause any kind of traffic havoc. Obviously, this is not a good idea, but that's how it works in Age of Empires 2. Sometimes people do the wrong thing, but they get away with it, so they never really learn, what the right way to do it is. So hopefully in this video, I can teach you guys the right way to make a unit transition and give you guys some tips so you can avoid the cops in your own games. Sorry. I can give you guys some tips so you can definitely have, the right kind of mindset when thinking about this for your own games. Alright, before diving too deep into that, we have to first establish why you would need to transition into different units in the first place. Why can't the one unit just be enough most of the time? Obviously, it's quite a simple concept, but I figured I'd cover it just in case we have new viewers on the channel that are new to RTS or to Age of Empires 2 in general. So as I said, it's quite simple really. You start out by making the unit you want to make at the start of the game, and it's usually the one that you want to make as a player or that your civilization excels at, and it's usually the natural choice for you in any particular game. And then naturally, your opponent will go ahead and counter the unit that you have on the field, because in Age of Empires 2, some units perform better against others. So if you open the game with Magyar scouts, a very logical choice, your opponent will tend to overproduce or produce a few spearmen to try to counter you. And then based on him making spearmen, I then, after opening scouts, will need to transition into a different unit, because long-term scouts aren't going to really cut it against mass spearmen, and so I might choose to go for something like a skirmisher or an archer to counter that spearman. Think of it like an endless game of rock, paper, scissors, where I'm going for one thing, my opponent goes ahead and counters me, but then I can then counter his counter, and then the move is up to him. It continues going in a loop. However, as it progresses, it gets more and more complicated. After the initial countering, I have one unit, he counters it, we both have one unit, and then I add a second unit, and all of a sudden I've got two different units creating a composition. Some compositions work in complete harmony when you have one range unit and one melee unit working perfectly together, and then other compositions are a little bit more clunky, having two melee units, having some units that are really slow mixed in with some units that are really fast, not really able to work together properly, and so on and so forth. It gets really complicated. There are a ton of factors, but the idea at the base level is quite simple. We're always trying to counter what our opponent has on the field in order to get favorable trades on the combat side of things. Alright, so back to how to actually make a unit transition. Now, normally when I'm watching games or doing coaching, or even in my high-level games, there's usually 3 common mistakes. And honestly, I'm not excluding myself from this list. I always make these mistakes. In fact, it's one of the hardest things that I had to learn as a player when I was a filthy 2K player playing up against the pros like Doubt, and I'd always lose because I'm making the wrong choices or just being way too stubborn about it. So these 3 mistakes, I've made them all. But let me know down below which ones you make the most. All right, so the first of the 3 mistakes is this. It's one type of player who is way too stubborn and stays on his one unit for way too long, allowing himself to get easily countered. Even after he sees the counter unit from his opponent, he will continue making his initial unit thinking he can outplay his opponent, but unfortunately he usually fails in doing so. And the keyword here is usually, because sometimes this could work, and so what I'd say is that there's a time and a place for this approach, but it's not a good rule of thumb. It's not something you should do all the time. And this is something I was guilty of doing all the time when, again, I was up and coming and just trying to learn the game at the highest level. Definitely one that we need to work our mind away from, because it's not a good long-term plan over hundreds of games. The second type of mistake or type of personality when it comes to unit transitions is the one who rushes all kinds of different units right away, all kinds of transitions all over the place. They don't even know if they can afford it or not. They typically end up with 3 or 4 different units, creating a chaotic composition of unupgraded units that are impossible to manage, and honestly, that composition is quite ineffective. This guy just creates a massive mess and no one can control it, and he doesn't even know where it went wrong. And the third type of mistake is the one who has the perfect timing on the transition, but unfortunately just goes for the wrong unit and dies anyway. Quite sad, I know, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Alright, with all that out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and cover all of these problems and provide solutions for you, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll know how to make a proper unit transition, what to look for, what to go for, and precisely how to go about it so it's a smooth transition and there's no points in it where you're vulnerable to any kind of opponent's aggression or timing. Alright, so the first thing to consider is when you need to transition. Usually you do this when you find yourself in an unfavorable position. For example, you have knights, and long term it's not a great option versus cavalry archers. This is a soft counter. Cav archers don't completely shred knights, and it's not an emergency situation. So when you find yourself in this position, normally the knights can perform pretty decently in the short term, but when the cavalry archers get masked, that's when it becomes a problem. In this case, we usually plan for a long-term transition, and we have a few minutes to work on that because our current situation isn't a disaster. So in this situation, we'll tend to a few tactics. For the second situation, this is where your opponent has an outright counter unit. In this situation, the clock is really ticking. We have to be a little bit faster in finding a transition, and sometimes we have to do a couple steps before finding our long-term transition, and I'll go ahead and cover what those steps should and could be. So for example, this would be knights versus camels. I opened with knights, my opponent just goes for camels, and it's okay for a little bit, but very quickly camels will become a massive problem if I'm playing only knights, and so it's my responsibility to find a pretty good solution for it rather quickly. Another option is knights versus pikes. Shout out Nilly. Pikes long-term versus knights will trade cost effectively, and me as a knight player might be fine in the short term, but definitely have to find a solution to those pikes in the long term. So as you can see from these basic examples, as soon as you see the enemy counter unit, you're not usually in a disastrous situation or an emergency that you need to find a transition within like a few seconds. At the very least, you'd have a couple minutes of time to get ready and pick what you want to go for. However, as you guys may know from playing the game, a couple minutes in game time really isn't that long, and so I want to stress that you have some time, but it's really not that much time that you can be casual about it. We have to take a few steps to buy us usually a bit more time and really plan ahead as to what the counter should and could be. The reason I'm saying should and could is that usually there's a couple options that you can go for. So it's not like I see my opponent going for X unit and it's very obvious what I have to make. Usually you have a few options, so it's like, okay, you could do this, you could do this, you could do that. Now what should you do in your current situation? And so I really want to highlight that it's a very nuanced thought process, and it's not very black and white where if he does this I do that, and it's basically a mathematical equation. It's not really how the game works, unfortunately. It would be really easy if it was. So now that we got a feel for how the timing is laid out, some unfavorable matchups usually have a few minutes, and then when it's a counter unit, usually have a couple minutes in game. Now let's see what to do when we're actually in these situations. What's the practical approach to going about it? So regardless what situation you find yourself in, there's usually an immediate transition that you can make that's gonna buy you time to make your long-term transition. But your long-term transition has to be the proper solution. That's the one you're aiming for, and that's the one that's going to try to win you the game. The short-term solution is usually there to buy you some time, or to force your opponent to respect you a little bit and not just look to trade all over the place with his counter unit. The reason why we need to buy ourselves time is that the long-term transition just takes too long to get going. I'll go ahead and explain what I mean by short-term and long-term transitions very soon, but I need you guys to understand that we need to buy ourselves time, and that's the reason why the short-term transition is even relevant. Otherwise, if I can just pick whatever I want, I'd almost always choose the long-term transition, and when I reveal what these terms are referring to, it'd be very clear to you as well, and you'd obviously agree with me. So once again, we need to buy ourselves time, and that's why the short-term transition exists in the first place. All right, now the moment we've been waiting for, enough waffling around, let's go ahead and talk about these terms. So when it comes to short-term transitions, I'm referring to mainly in Castle Age, Monastery, Siege Workshop, and University. These three buildings give us a ton of options that can help with our composition building and help kind of buffer into our proper long-term transition. Other options are defensive structures like walls, towers, and castles, and these, especially in Feudal Age, can be very effective. Palisade walls and houses can buy you a ton of time and allow for proper transitions. Let me give you guys a couple examples so you can truly understand what I mean by a short-term transition and why it's important. So for example, if I open with knights and my opponent is on camels, I want to get to pikes, but pikes is a long-term transition. Why? Because it requires an extra couple barracks. I only have one barracks initially. I need to make one or two more to get some production rolling. I also need the pikeman upgrade. I need squires most of the time, and then any blacksmith upgrades. And then I actually have to mass the unit. One or two pikes are not very effective. As you can see, that is a ton of resources. But although pikes are great against camels, I can't justify just randomly adding in pikes as soon as I see enemy camels. So what I would actually do in a real game situation is that I'd open with a monastery. Monastery is really quick to get to, and the monks counter the camels in the short term. Monastery, 175 wood, one or two monks, that's 100 or 200 gold, and those monks will help turn the tide when the units are like 6v6 or 8v8. The two conversions completely swing the tide of the fights and give me the advantage. So even though my opponent has the counter units, I'm currently with this small transition, short-term transition, I'm currently still in control of the game, and I've got the more powerful units and the defensive unit to guard against the camels, and I've got that little composition that works wonders at controlling the mid game. And then from this position, I can use the window that I've bought myself with the monks to then set up the pike transition, which is naturally more expensive. This allows me to do a very controlled pike transition. My opponent doesn't know it's coming, how strong it is, how fast it's going to hit him, and then I put him on the ropes because he's going to continue massing camels, seeing that I'm still on knights, and then once he's built up a ton of camels, my economy is going to be pretty strong back home. He's got 20, I've got 20 knights, and then bam, all of a sudden I switch to pikes with a stronger economy. I still have the monks, and my composition is way stronger than him, and now it's up to him to find a counter unit to my pikes, monks, and knights composition. This is exactly how it works in any scenario. I can pick anything. Expo versus skirm. I want to go for knights, but knights are expensive. What do? I make a siege workshop, couple mangonels and scorpions. All of a sudden, I have an answer to these skirmishers. And so as you can see, the monastery, the siege workshop, and to some extent the university with like guard tower and ballistics and whatnot, these act as short-term transitions. They're going to turn the tides of the early game fights or early Castle Age fights in your favor without forcing you to go for a completely different unit type, which takes a lot of resources and a ton of time to mass. The reason why we still need the long-term transition though is that usually these short-term options are not favorable in the long run. Monks are really easy to control when you have 3 or 4 of them. If you've got 20 monks, I'm not an AI, I can't control 20 monks at the same time. It's really difficult, and so 20 monks are really not that effective in the hands of a human because you have to control them all manually, and it's quite difficult to do so. And so as you can see, monks are great in the short term, terrible in the long run, and so I'm only using them in the short term to prepare something else in the long run, and that is the perfect harmony. That is the perfect way to make a unit transition. Now, to give you guys a couple more examples in different ages, for example, the Feudal Age, again, it's the same concept, except I don't have access to monasteries and siege workshop, but what I do have access to is walls. And so if I'm going archers, my opponent goes skirms, ain't no problem. I could go for scouts, that's not bad, but again, scouts tends to be a little bit more the long-term transition. So in the short term, what I'll do is I'll probably just make a few walls. Those take a minute to build up with a few villas. I'm naturally walling with houses, and so usually I'm good to go. If it gets messy, I also have a tower available to me, and that could be a good short-term transition to buy myself time, and then eventually the scouts can come up if I still need them. Another form of a long-term transition can be an age up. So if I'm Feudal Age, I buy myself time with the houses, and then my transition from archers to something else, it'll just be archers into Castle Age. And then when I get the crossbows counter Feudal Age skirms. The Feudal Age skirms really can't compete if you've got decent micro. And so as you can see in this example, the short-term transition was the walls, long-term transition transition was the expo. This method of thinking when it comes to unit transitions is so good, and I'm sure if your opponent isn't doing this, he's gonna fall behind in crucial decision-making aspects. When it comes to this buzzword decision-making that every 900 ELO throws in Twitch chats, but no one really understands what it means, this is the kind of things that pros are referring to. These are the decisions we're making constantly, but the better and more experienced you are, the more obvious it becomes for you. If you're a beginner or a new player or an up-and-coming player, it's very hard to understand these patterns and to recognize them in your own games, but hopefully after videos like these, you can start to recognize these patterns and these methods of thinking that can help you make better decisions on your own. There are so many different variables that I can't sit here and give an example for every single situation. So instead, what I'll do is that I'll leave you with a couple more rules of thumb that you can use to make the right choices in your games. So when it comes to picking the right unit, try to choose a unit that complements the one that you initially had. A general rule of thumb is that range units work really well with a melee unit. So one range unit, one melee unit. Another way is one gold unit, so one gold heavy unit, and the other unit that comes in is a trash unit. This is a great way to think about your composition because usually these types of units cover each other's weaknesses. For example, archers in the back, knights in the front, you're looking at a very solid composition and what we see in every team game. If you combine this with whatever short-term transition you make, you're looking at a very fierce composition and a very strong army. For example, if I've got crossbows and then I've also got a couple mangonels because my opponent's on skirms, and then I switch into knights, how does my opponent stop crossbows, mangonels, and knights? All of a sudden, I've got this beautiful composition that can easily defend whatever he has and then launch a massive push against him, force him to then make a strong transition or else he's going to lose the game. And so as you can see, mixing in units that work really well together but doing it at the right time is obviously a skill that will get developed as you play hundreds of games, but it is definitely a skill that you need to hone from now and hopefully build up because this is the way to win games without any fancy micro. Hopefully you guys enjoy these videos. I really put a lot of effort into this one in particular because it's such an important topic. If you guys want to help me out and reward the kind of effort I'm putting in, which I hope you guys can benefit from it, just leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a ton and it keeps me motivated to put in as much time and effort into this. This one took me a couple hours to write up and to make, so I really hope you guys appreciate it and benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Alrighty guys, hello and welcome back to another rec review. We have our friend Ploppy Venus here, and he said on the Patreon Discord, he said he can tell there were some obvious mistakes like not using combinations of houses with my walls, which led to getting housed, but I'm pretty happy with how this game turned out. The end kind of dragged on as I was trying to finish him off. Feel free to fast forward. The last time he did a rec review, he told me to focus on improving my base and to focus on reducing my castle click-up time. The last review I clicked up about 22 minutes in. My goal is to hit 1400 ELO by the end of the year. I basically main Ethiopians for Arabia. My advice, any advice to get there or get me there is greatly appreciated. Roast the hell out of me if you need to, say less. And as always, thanks for the great content. I love tuning into your streams at work. Watching my streams at work? Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, that's literally all of my Twitch chat. No, it's okay. Guys, don't worry. I'm a programmer babysitter. All the programmers coding at home. Work from home, yes, watching my stream, and I just keep you guys entertained. That's my job. Okay, guys. This is going to be a YouTube review as well, just because I feel like doing some spicy commentary. And he said roast the hell out of me, which is perfect. Bro, that's such a sloppy lure. No, I'm kidding. It's actually a great lure. But we're going to have that energy. Bro, did you just idle your scout for 2 seconds there before sending him back? What the hell? I'm just going to call out all of his mistakes. We're going to... His opponent's in gray, whatever, we'll just keep it gray. I don't like reviewing some guy who's red. Red is the enemy in my mind. I'm like a bull. Oh, clean lure, what the hell? Who is this guy? Super clean so far. Normally people at this level, like 1100, normally they idle the TC a lot more when they're trying to lure deer and stuff. But this is pretty solid. Missed your house though? Oh, you're about to get housed, eh? You're about to get housed. So a good little tip there actually. Okay, just get loom, yeah, it's good. A good little tip there is as you're luring your deer and boar, try to plant in advance. Like you're like, okay, 12 pop, okay, the next fill's got to make a house. So just right away put your gather point here so that you just don't have to think about it later. So try to plant in advance when you're luring your deer. Talk to yourself if you have to, by the way. Talk to yourself. Be like, okay, 12 pop, let's go for the boar. Next vill has to make a house. Say these things out loud. It really helps, by the way. You think I just talk to my chat when I'm streaming? I'm talking to myself. It just happens that people are listening. All right? It's actually a really underrated tip, by the way. Just talk to yourself while playing. You stay really on the ball. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm the weird one. Okay, you still need your mill or like your mining camp. Whatever you want to go for. You made Ethiopians in Arabia, so I expect you to have really good understanding of what the Civ is good at. Good scouting. Actually, really good Dark Age. I'm gonna give you a 5.5 out of 10 for this Dark Age. A 10 being my perfect Dark Age. So you're getting a 5.5. It's not bad. It's a pretty good score. All right, pretty good, pretty good. Let's see. Ooh, some idle time. Not too bad. Not too bad. 8 on wood. Yeah, you're clearly doing the principles. You know what? I came here wanting to roast you a bit more, but you're doing very well. Mining camp first. Clearly, it's an archer build with the Ethiopians. Super solid. I can tell you're listening to the advice on Patreon just because of how well you're playing with like the basics. Like 8 on wood, a couple on the straggler tree. Now you go for the barracks at the perfect timing on the front. Houses in front of the mill. Oh, in front of the berries. This is really good, man. So far, really good. Scouting your base quite a bit, though. At this point, you want to definitely scout your opponent because we need to see A, where he's at, B, where his resources are located so we know where to attack, and C, what he's going for. All right? These are the 3 things we need to know about our opponent's map. Because right now, if your opponent's going men-at-arms, like a 20-pop men-at-arm build, and we don't scout him, we won't know he's doing it. What we're going to see is we're going to see the barracks when we scout him, and we don't know if he made men-at-arms out of that barracks or not. So that's why it's important to scout your opponent a little earlier to protect yourself against the strategies. All right? Archers, and now we start walling up with 1-2 bills. Good. You said you didn't mix in houses with your walls. That's why you got housed. I can see that you're making only palisade walls here. A good little tip for that is like whenever you have the small walls like this, never do 4 palisade, always do 2 houses, like literally always, because that's way better. Because if you get pushed on this side, it's such a small gap that if you have only palisade, you risk getting like 2-3 mangonels on the hill and they kill it fast. But if you have houses, it's like very secure in a small gap. In a big gap, you can't afford to make houses the whole way through, so you always make palisades. But like in theory, if houses were free, we would house wall the entire thing. We wouldn't use palisade. Like that's how Mr. Yo does it. So in the small gaps like this, always two houses, because then you're just protecting yourself so well. And that way you don't get houses as well. That's a little pro tip. Okay, so now we see our opponent. So always we find his TC. Good. Scout around his base. Always. All right. It's so quiet. I love it. It's so cool. So he's going stable. You don't know this because you didn't scout around your opponent's base. That's a basic principle. So from now on, you find your opponent, and I repeated this a lot of times. Like my regular viewers on YouTube know this. You find your opponent, loop around his base. It's so basic, but it helps so much. You don't even know where his gold is. You see his wood, you see his gold, you see where he can wall, you see what he's doing. You know none of that right now. How do you know to make a spear or not? You're not going to make a spear because you don't know to make a spear. He's on scouts. Also, let's continue those basic principles that we had early. Let's go 4 on gold. Keep making archers. Now we're starting to get housed. I can see it. Mixing in some houses here. So now I hope the scouts come in and I hope they get some vill kills on you because you are not playing properly. Now we scout the stable. Do you go for the spearman? At this point, you should go for a spear. Like, remember, the average number is like your opponent is on scouts. Minimum 1 spear. By the way, minimum 1 spear in general for any game because your opponent has 1 starting scout. So making 1 spear will cancel out that starting scout and it's a very safe way to play. Good job fighting back with your vills. Good job. Really good job. No, continue fighting back. There we go. He'll kill 1. It doesn't matter. And now we push him back. Okay, could have been a bit better. If you had your 1 spear, that would not be possible as well. Never quick wall, by the way. I literally forbid you from quick walling because this is just like... It's just going to make your game very messy. What you should do now is get back to your full walls. Don't start slacking. Get out here. Finish this wall. Make a gate. Alright. This quick walling stuff, it doesn't really help. Gate at the back. Good. Nice. Okay, you got back to your walls at least. Now, what's your main game plan here? Your main game plan after the feudal age is to get to castlage at a good time. Alright? And you know this. I talked about this in your last review. I don't know if that last review went to YouTube. But you're basically trying to get up to a castlage at a good time. With your archers, you have like 1 window where you can attack now. I would actually recommend you attack right here. Because your opponent's on scouts and he can't hold. Okay, you're trying to get it walled fast. Fair enough. He can't hold archers without making a skirm switch. So you have a window here where you can attack him and you're stronger. Why are you going man-at-arms? Oh, thank God. Thank God. Fast forward. Yeah, late gold. Because you lack the basic principles. You didn't have 4 on gold throughout the Dark Age. Sorry, throughout the Feudal Age.